Well, it's been a very, very dramatic and very, very difficult day because the violence continues. The bus bombing in Tel Aviv was a shock to the population of Tel Aviv. Israel's Iron Dome system had been knocking down nearly all the missiles heading for Tel Aviv and Jerusalem over the last several days, and to have this bus bombing is a severe disappointment. I think it will affect, obviously, the situation, but the Israelis would like a ceasefire if they can be assured that Hamas will not fire rockets into southern Israel and into central Israel. Hamas, I think, also needs a ceasefire because they really risk alienating much of the world public opinion. They started this. They've been firing rockets at Israel for weeks and months. Their rejectionist stance of not recognizing Israel, not being willing even to talk to the Israelis is infuriating to most of the rest of the world and frustrating. So I do think there's a lot of impetus for a ceasefire, but today's events does not make it any easier. I think the pressure is on Hamas. I don't agree with the conventional wisdom that somehow Hamas is receiving significant international support. I think countries in the Arab world are worried about Hamas and worried about the radicalism of Hamas and the splintering of politics in Gaza, because we see emerging in some of these rocket brigades much more radical elements than even Hamas. And so it's a very dangerous situation from them. The Israeli government has mobilized a significant ground force on the borders of Gaza. And if this firing of rockets doesn't stop, and if terrorism continues within, terrorist attacks on Israel continue, then you can't preclude the possibility even of a ground war. This tells me that the Egyptian government is going to move heaven and earth to convince Hamas to stand down and agree to a ceasefire. I think that this situation this week was crying out for on-the-ground American leadership. It was a good decision by the president to send Secretary Clinton there. She's a very skilled diplomat. She's going to, I think, have the capacity to bring about a ceasefire. And then I think the administration does face a test. They're going to have to decide, do they spend some of their political capital in foreign policy on this extraordinarily complex, frustrating, and difficult question, the Israeli-Palestinian crisis? I don't see that there's an alternative. Because if you just let the Israelis and Palestinians let the problems fester, what you get is what you're seeing this week in Gaza. So I do anticipate that the administration will step up its involvement in the Middle East peace talks.